I think when I went to the Nationals to sail. So no wonder you guys are so hard to beat when you come back north in the summertime, because you guys practice all year round, and we're sitting up there playing video games and stuff to keep our thumbs going. But anyway, I'm Scott Rowland, started Windjammin Sails. I grew up sailing. My parents are the founders of the Sailor's Tailor, who make 200 classes of sailboat covers we ship out of the country. We also make sails on the side that were called Rowland sails. And so I grew up, first sailboat when I was like 4 or 5. My dad would take me out in the boat and say, "You want a popsicle?" And I'd go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Here's the tiller. There's the concession stand. You get us there, it's yours." And then I grew up, I was real fortunate in Dayton, Ohio. Even though we're in Ohio, just south of us is the Lake Cowan Lake. And I grew up, there were 46 kids my age going through teen camp and training camps. We had real good sailing camps. We'd sail every Sunday in the Optimus Pram, which is an 8-foot boat, single sail. And so at age 7, I started sailing in the Pram, sailed that till 12. Then I got into teen camp when we moved into Sunfish and Laser. Talked my dad into buying me a Sunfish. Everybody bought Lasers that year. It's kind of like the DF95's coming along. Everybody switched over, and here I had the Sunfish. So the next year I said, "Dad, I know you just bought me a Sunfish, but can I get a Laser?" So I sailed that from 13 on up to 17. And there we had a real good program where we sent people to the Smythe, the Bemis. That's like the team training where you actually go sail in your region, and then if you win, you continue on, go up to Detroit. If you win there, you move on. So sailed against some guys, like one guy, Steve Bordeaux, won a silver medal in the Olympics back in the 1990s. Came back to the club, and he was an older guy that I was sailing against. We had 2 other people win the Sears Cup in the whole country. They represented our club here in Ohio, and went to the Sears Cup and won the whole thing in that. I myself have won the 1987 Junior Snipe Nationals, and the Snipe was always hard to win because they always had an open water. But if you sail on inland lakes, they're used to flat, smooth, calm, puffy drifter conditions. One year it was in Lawrence, Kansas. It was a drifter. The Californians were all saying, "This isn't sailing." We were loving it because light air, drift, puff here and then stop and a puff there. We ended up winning that. And then sailed and won the Y-Flyer Senior Nationals. There are 50 boats there. And that's a class that Jerry Callahan's a 3-time national champion in. So sailing against guys like Jerry who are really tough to beat. And ended up getting the models right out of college. And with the business, like I work in the family business making the sails and boat covers for years. My dad and I were making the Y-Flyer sails and really pushing that class. And for like 4 or 5 years, they won the nationals every year, the midwinters, and not ourselves, but people using our sails. And when I got out of college, I found the remote control sailboats. I thought, wow, this is really neat. Why don't we try scaling down the full-size boats of our computerized cutter and see if we can't just duplicate what's winning in the Y-Flyer and the model boats. So we did this in the Star 45 class and found out the camber as is just too full. So I took and said, let's try 95% of the camber, but everything else the same. Still too full. So then I tried 90% and it started getting a little too flat there. So kind of dialed it in and used the computer and molds, made all sorts of sail molds to go put the seams together, because on a big boat, when you're putting seams together, you're talking tolerances that are real small and stuff, are pretty big, so you can see the bend. On the models, when you're talking about putting a 16th-inch, camber together in this long, if you don't have some type of mold to help you, it's real hard to get that to flow smooth and not get a wrinkle or a dimple there. So anyway, been doing it ever since, and made well over 1,000 sets of model sails. Really, the claim to fame is I love seeing you guys take one of the printed designs, even though at first I didn't get into sewing because I said, well, as a sailmaker, there's nothing shape-wise I can do because they're flat sails. But then when we started printing them and I found a way to print on them, it suddenly became my favorite class because the paint jobs some of you guys are doing to match the sails and the neatness and the designs you're coming up with just keep me going. Somebody will contact me and send me a graphic and say, what can we do with this? And then when I get back to a finished boat and they've painted the hull with all these fancy, markings and everything, I'm like, that is so cool. So I've really been enjoying being part of that, and then racing with everybody and meeting everybody. But real fast on the tuning, there's all sorts of different ways to tune. So what I always tell people, I left them in the car, is the best thing to do is to always take a piece of paper and a notebook and have it in your box. And when your boat's running real good that day, take and measure your settings. Because even though, you say you go up to like one guy and say, how'd you tune your boat? The position of the mast, I noticed the masts are anywhere from 17 inches to 18 to 15 and a half. They're pretty much supposed to be stock, but you can go from boat to boat and find the very center of the mast is varying by just, even a half an inch or a quarter an inch. Well, the thing with the sailboats, it's all about balance. If you're taking and boat's not balanced, like on a day like today, it'll really show it up. If you're not perfectly balanced, when the puffs hit, your boat's going to want to spin up into the air. One, if you spin up and other guys don't, they're going to keep shooting forward, and even if it's a half boat length, you lose 3 or 4 half boat lengths. I don't know how many times you've come into the finish line, and if you would have been 2 boat lengths ahead, you'd have passed 6 boats there. And it's not all about, always winning every race. It's about just consistently beating that 1 or 2 extra guys at the finish line. and being ahead of them. So you want to get the boat so it balances, so when, like on a day like today, when the big puffs hit, I'm actually going to show you a way to dump some of the energy on the main. The boat will just lay over, but it won't turn at all. It'll go straight through that big puff and just continue straight and not have the problem of spinning up into the wind. And what do you do when it spins up? You crank on the rudder. That's like acting like a brake, and you bring the nose back down. And anybody who didn't have to do that just shot forward on you 6, 7 inches. Well, you know how, if you come off the starting line, if you can just get out in front of everybody and make that first tack, so much easier than when you're back there waiting for everybody else to give you clear air and attack out of your way and things. And so I always like to start the boat on its side because standing upright, I find I just don't have anything to kind of be a reference on how much pressure is on the rig and on the sails and, for that. So I like to see them kind of fill and see, what they're shaping like. And the first thing I always do is I just come and sight my mast and see. I've got the adjustable where I can adjust the tightness of the upper and the lower and just see if it's straight. And I find it's funny. That looks real good. I find it's funny that I'll set my boat away over from Tuesday sailing, come back the next Tuesday, didn't touch a thing, and suddenly this has gotten really loose and my mast is bending like a spoon, laying out this way when I look at it on the side. And so basically I just unhook the lower, tighten up a little bit, see, and I'll flip it over and check the other side. And see again if the mast looks perfectly straight. And that looks real good. But if you look, half the boats here today, if you look, the mast is probably spooned in one way or the other, just because the side stays a little bit off. And then the next thing I'll do, now, if you notice too, like tuning changes, you can't just have one setting for light air to heavy air. One in light air, I found in super glass drifter conditions, they always say you want full sails. Well, actually in drifters, you want to go a flatter sail. And the reason being, there just isn't enough energy in the wind to go around our air camber, flow around the sail, and pull the boat. So when it's real light, you actually are flatter. You want to just sail with things more ease. So you'd sail a flatter sail and constantly be kind of letting them out, get the boat up to speed, then pull in and point. As soon as you get just a little bit of wind, like ripples on up, or just wind where the boats are moving walking speed, now you fatten things up because now there's enough energy that the wind can flow around the sail. If you try doing that fat sail in a drifter, it kind of hits the sail and just bounces off, or takes all the energy just to fill your sail. And then as you get on up, as the wind comes up, now you need to start flattening out things, using more backstay and boom bang. Because what happens on a sail, if you notice the New America's Cup, they're building hard wing sails. And the reason being, on a sailboat, our boom bang depends a lot on how much the sails twist. You notice as the sails, in here we're one direction on the wind. Up here we're totally twisted off and the sail's a different way. And so we'll use boom bang to control that. But, real fast too, like I was saying, because of the shape of the hull, as the boat's sailing upright, it'll track one way. As the wind starts coming up and you see it heeling, this side of the boat here starts trying to force the nose to come up. So we're going to have to change our balance point, where your boat may be perfectly balanced and sailing straight when it's here, but as soon as you heel it a little bit, now because of this hull, it wants to turn up, and we need to move our CG forward. And I've read all sorts of guys, some guys lean the rig forward, some people lean it back, different, move the mast forward and backwards just to change that CG to keep it tracking straight. Taking a step back here for a second, what I like to do is I think of the jib as my pointing ability. The tighter you pull the jib in, and the main, of course, you're going to point higher, but it's like a car in, 5th gear or something. If you take and pull in super tight, yeah, you'll point like crazy, but you're going to be moving really slow because we're like at the bottom of a hill in 5th gear trying to start the car when other guys are starting in 1st gear. So I've kind of found, and I always tell everybody that I like 3.25 inches. I found is kind of my magic number. When I start getting tighter than that, I start losing speed. When I'm at 3.25 inches, I'm taking and pointing and going pretty fast. And I like to measure that again. If the boat on its side, sails pulled all the way in, I put a tape measure right here and see if my boom right there at the end is 3.25 inches. And I'm going to double check that. I've got a measuring sheet in there. I haven't been sailing now for 3 months, so I'm trying to remember the numbers. I've got sheets to hand everybody to have my numbers. But I'll put that there. When I've got the jib set, I do that with the trims where I want them and everything. Then I go ahead and look at my main. And I'm sorry. Now that I think it's 2.5 inches. I've got the jib in there. I sail so many different boats and stuff. It's 2.5 inches. I've got there to the end of the boom. So when that's set at the 2.5, then I come back and I sight a straight line from my backstay to my mast here. And I want this set either somewhere between 3 and 2. And I say between 3 and 2 because it just depends on boat to boat how I'm running. I myself, a lot of guys like to sail with the boom real tight and sail that way. I like to try and keep my sail more even and not let it twist as much, trying to get the whole thing to use as a common wing, and I like to try and let the whole thing out as much as I can. Some of the guys will sail tight here with a ton of twists, so they've got the top half of the sail, pulling them up here, but the bottoms, to me, is really not doing that much other than putting pressure to help them point. I like to take and even the thing out and let this out quite a bit. And so at times you'll see me and my boom will be out here over the edge of the boat. So I like having mine when that's at 2.5. I like sailing this one right about 2.5, and I sight that right between there and there. So right there I'm only 1 3/4. So I'd be a little tight.
Where is that measure up? I can see.
I'm going from the backstay sighting to here, and then putting my tape measure to the end of my boom. So now I've gone. This one's kind of hard. It's easier for you've got good knees and everything else. So right there's my 2.5.
Is that on the corner of the hole?
Looks like it might just be a little bit. Basically, I was sighting from here to here, just using my tape measure to take and see that it's intersecting the 2.5. Now, if I were to put no boom bang on, what would happen is I'd go out there and I wouldn't be able. My main would be luffing away and shaking the rig and everything because the top's going to be. That may be 2.5, but you can see I've really opened up here, and I'm nowhere near 2.5 out here. I'm probably more like 3.5 or 4. So I would then take and adjust my boom bang, and what I'm looking for is to try and keep this middle batten or maybe the top batten parallel with the boom. So I would use just enough boom bang then to take and crank it back until I feel it's kind of loose. Now, that's kind of my starting point. What I do then too, if it's lighter, I go for pretty light backstay. Because the backstay, as you notice, when you pull on here, you can see how it's tightening our jib up and closing off the slide. There. And if you have a jib that's, got, on some of the other boats that were camber jibs, it'll actually hook it, and you'll hook the jib right into the loosening it. Right? I'm tightening it up.
Righty, tighty, like it.
Yeah, I reset it.
Okay.
Guess I gotta play around with this one a little bit. But anyway, I want to take and get the main so it's not shaking by taking and adjusting that Wesley. And coming up there. Now as the wind gets real windy, like I've come out here when it's just up to white caps and get these monster puffs through, I've now got way too much power. So I don't need all that power, and I don't want the boat to spin up in the wind. This settings are my good settings when it's a nice medium day. I'll actually go tighter on the jib and go from the 2.5 into 2 because it gets so much force out there. It's car in 5th gear. If there's no hill and you're already moving 30 mile an hour, you can be in 5th gear. You don't need to go to 1st gear. So I'll crank in tighter here and go to the 2.5. Again, I want to keep this out, so I'll have a lot of boom bang on, but I'll have my main out over the edge of the boat. Everybody goes, wait a minute, I'll sail mine centered. Well, if you notice, a lot of guys, when it gets real windy, the hardest part for them is they lose control because the boat wants to spin up and weather vane into the air. Again, it's that CG. I want when the big puffs hit, I want my main to take and left first in heavy, heavy air, the jib to stay full, and that'll keep the nose just tracking straight along. The boat will lean over, but the boat won't spin up into the wind. If you have this at 2.5, and this one batten down where you've got good tension there, you'll go right through that puff straight as an arrow, and because you've got enough boom bang on, the main won't sit there and flutter and flake. It may left in about here. Back edge is pull it tight enough to stay. What you're trying to do is just keep that center effort and that balance. You're moving the CG forward to take, or CG aft, so you can take and get more force pushing the nose down. We don't want to be spinning up in the air. So,
CG,
on the boat itself, we want more force in the front half of the boat to keep the nose down. When it heels, it's going to want to naturally round up. There'll be more force in front of the center board to keep the nose down. Yeah. I drop this thing way back. I'm not going to move the mast there, but instead we'll let this guy out.
Are you talking about moving the mast bottom forward?
Right, but because I've pulled in tighter on the jib and let the main out, like if I were to leave the main in, this would never work. Because when the puffs hit, there'd be so much force behind the keel here, the boat would spin up. But I'm running this at 2.5, which is a little tighter than normal, so the wind really pushes on it. And when you tack, you get that nose caught sooner, it yanks the nose over. And then because I'm running this not super tight like a lot of guys do, out at the corner, but with a lot of boom bang, so the flat house doesn't shake. You can just go right on like a knife up the lake, tack when you want, because the jib catches first. You got enough speed, you'll have this push back here. You get enough, as soon as you get the nose going, it catches the nose immediately and pulls you across. So that's when you get the heavy rocks out here to do that. So it's all about getting that relation. So what I do is, say I came out here today and I said, I'm really doing well. I was faster than everybody else. I'll take and measure these measurements here. I'll measure off to Justin. You can come out here the next day because you set it on the side. You get the same type of purpose, or same setup as far as gravity filling the sails. Set it back to those settings. The biggest thing I can say is if you come out here, you go around the windward mark and say second or third, and you drop back to 6 by the end of the race, bring it in and make an adjustment. Even if it's the wrong thing, just experimenting. You should go around in third and you get to second or first, not drop to fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh unless you just know you made mistakes. And fix it, because if you come out next week and it breaks again or does it again, one, you'll never finish a regatta and do very well because you always have those dropped out races, and two, it'll just get frustrating for you where, I don't want to go out next Tuesday. I only get to sail 2 races before it breaks anyway. So I always tell the number one thing you could do to improve your speed is improve or fix anything that's broken. One thing I like is like some guys have the string boom bangs that have the bowsy here. They're very hard to get fine adjustments and fine tune your leech. I like the ones that have a pivot screw in there so you can pull in and adjust it just how you want it. So kind of like this one, I can dial it in and tighten it up. And actually right now, it looks like I'm maxing out on the boom bang. It's not getting as tight as I need it. So I'd probably go home and adjust this boom bang so I can tighten it down even tighter and get the boom to actually start bending a little bit. What I thought would probably be the best thing is if anybody who's interested, I could take a look at their boat and come around and work with you today while you're sailing and show you some tuning things on your actual boat and some group thing here. Plus, I've got a sheet for most of you that tell the settings I use on my boat for the different wind conditions, measuring from the end of the boom to the mast, and the end here to the stay. And I've taken guys that said, I don't have your sails. I bought a Victor boat, put it together, stock Victor, it's never been in the water, set the dimensions to your sails and thought, right out of the box, I ended up getting like a second or third at nationals, so I'm real close to being just on, on the money. So the numbers are a real good starting point. And then that person went and fine-tuned their own, trying a little bit tighter boom bang, a little looser and things like that, and found they even made it a little faster than that. So these numbers are good numbers to show what I use and how I measure.
Starting with a straight up mast, or you can measurements from the start to the top of the mast.
I actually do have a 57.5 from here back to the boat. But we're finding out that some of the guys have different mast heights. So I actually measured the height of my mast, and that's on the sheet too. I brought one from the car out here. So we're going to bring the boat up. But I measure from here to here. And then I have, when it gets windier, I'll rock that mast back a little bit like I was talking about. But again, that gives me a basis to go from boat to boat. So this one's at 57 right now. And I think I'm right there about 57 and a half when I'm sailing, going back forward on a normal day. I don't. Maybe I should add that one. What I did is gave people the height of my mast that I measured. And we were finding some people were taller. Like I was a little bit shorter than some people because I didn't go maxed out on the green. All right. Like I said, I'd be happy to come out if anybody wants me to look at their boats or things and just give some comments that way. I think that would work better than trying to. And I'll hand out a sheet to you if anybody's interested on the tuning sheet.
Yeah, very.
Okay. Well, I don't think it compares to this, though.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, and always carry a tape measure with you.
I hear you.
And I find it's really good, too, like, if the guys will let you, measure some of the settings, take the guy that's going fast and say, how tight are you pulling in on your jib? If he's pulling into 2 and you're at 2.5, that might be why he's outpulling you or something. You just kind of get a real good idea if you have kind of some base numbers. Yeah, and then I've got measurements on that too on that sheet. So like I usually do an inch and a half here, an inch there. I haven't set this one up yet. Like I said, I've got to have sheets when you start racing.
That's probably good.
I tell these on 12